Hey, everybody, you're listening to Raw with Marty Gallagher, JP Bryce, and Jim Steele, brought to you by Iron Company. Our next guest is not your everyday podcast guest. He's not a celebrity, an Instagram influencer, or anyone you've ever heard of. And if by some small chance you do know him, you're either friends and family, part of an elite group of Tier 1 Spec Ops fighters, or someone who's just had a really bad day. As for us, we're honored to call him our friend and have him on for his first exclusive interview since retiring. This is a man that spent 30 plus years in the U.S. Navy, during which he completed 16 combat tours dating back to Kosovo. Today, we'd like to welcome retired Navy SEAL Master Chief Jason Henderson.
Hey guys.
Welcome, Hendo.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Appreciate man. You coming on. Finally.
Yeah, it's I retired in September, and of course it was COVID going on, so there was no like retirement ceremony or anything. There's like, here, sign these non-disclosure agreements. Now there's a gate, get out. So it's been an interesting transition into the civilian world. I lived in an isolated and worked in an isolated community, so this is very new for me. I'm not used to talking about anything that I've done. I've had just started social media in the last 6 months, so I'm way behind the power curve on that. And I don't have a lot of friends in the civilian community, so it's kind of been a big reset, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But when you got out, you really hit the ground running, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you're working on. A lot of interesting things that kind of combine, all your techniques and tactics that you've learned through the Navy, and now you're bringing it to the civilian world and the first responders world and things like that. So we'll get into that a little bit later. First of all, I just want to ask, how do you know Marty? You guys go back a ways. Tell us how this all happened.
Yeah, it's in fact, would have to go back even farther to talk about human performance in the SEAL teams, and then how we evolved and innovated. It started off in the 90s when I came in. I came in like 1990. I think I was in the SEALs by 92 or so, 91. It was just long distance running and long distance swimming, and nobody had fought in a war since Vietnam, so we really didn't know what we were doing. And during that time, everything was just based on how far you could push yourself from an endurance standpoint. There was very little emphasis put on strength at all. And it's funny, Marty and I were talking about it the other day, how SEAL commanders, because they work in an administrative role, would want to feel like, hey, I'm a SEAL too, and I'm a leader here at the command. So they would make these ridiculous things we called monster mashes, which would be like a 12-mile run followed by a 3-mile ocean swim, followed by carrying sandbags or whatever, obstacle courses. And they would train for it. These staff officers would train for it for 6 months, and it would just all of a sudden like surprise us with it. We'd come back from climbing Pikes Peak or something in Colorado, and you get back on Sunday and Monday like, hey, there's a monster mash. So it was really stupid how it was run, and it was just catered to the ego of these commanders. And it would just end up breaking guys, and most of us that had any kind of thinking outside the box, creative thinking, would just run into the bushes, have our buddy pick us up, go drink Bloody Marys, and then show up at about finish time when our time would come in, and then we'd emerge from the brush. And most of those people, oddly enough, are the ones that made it to the Tier 1 level because they were innovative thinkers. And we're just like, okay,
that's a good point.
In the SEALs, we have a motto that if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And really, that's just to kind of get us in the mindset that there's not just one way of doing things, that you should be innovative. And we're not the type that charges a machine gun nest, you know what I mean? We're like, okay, how do I outthink the enemy? How can I be as creative as possible? But so throughout those years, it was just endurance. And when we started fighting in the wars in 2001 and 2, we were like, okay, well, we've been doing it wrong the entire time. We're not properly prepared, because it ended up being all picking guys up, kicking in doors, throwing guys up onto walls, things like that.
Sprinting.
Yeah, sprints. I mean, in 16 combat tours, I never ran more than 100 yards, and never once did I strip down to my panties and go fast shoes and take off for 12 miles. So it was a waste of time what we were doing. So we were like, okay, let's rethink this thing. So we went kind of to the four winds, and at the command I was at, we kind of went all over. I was training a lot of fighting at the time, a lot of combative. So I was kind of reaching out to like Institute of Human Performance down in Florida and some other groups, and just being like, how are you guys training fighters, and how are you preparing them? Because there's a combination of strength and endurance. Other guys are going over Stegen, Pavel, and all these other groups. And one guy at our command kind of said, "Well, hold on a second. Everybody's got their little niches that they're doing. Why don't we bring everybody in and just have a strength symposium, and we just kind of pick what's good and what isn't?" This John Foss, God rest his soul, and he brought in Pavel, who in turn brought in Marty and Dan John and the TRX guys, and there was all kinds of people there, and everybody kind of went out and did their spiel. A lot of it wasn't appealing to me personally. I didn't see where a lot of it was applicable. Some of it was okay, some of it was decent. Um, and then I kind of just asked, who's that grumbling guy that doesn't say anything over in the corner with an angry look on his face? And they're like, "Oh, that's Marty Gallagher. He's a world champion powerlifter, and he's trained the greatest in the world." I went, "Okay." Well, walked over and I had a conversation, and then from then we're like, "Show me one of your cycles. I'll train your cycle." And this is what I do for everybody. It's like,
Hendo,
yeah.
first time I ever laid eyes on you, right?
That's what I want to know, your first impression.
Yeah. We're sitting in the gym, and I'm sitting next to, I've got John on one side. I mean, I've got Jimmy in the other, right?
Yeah.
And you walked in, you came in the door, and I noticed that both guys at either side set up bolt straight, right? And then John leaned over to me and he goes, "That's Hendo. That's our best fighter. He's the alpha of the alphas." I said, "Oh, okay."
Well, that's a super nice thing for John to have said. Yeah, and I'm sure, I've had moments, but yeah, it was good, and I tested the Marty's program, and I had really great results, and it was a minimalist approach. It all just comes down to, the fundamentals, the four main exercises. Today in human performance, it's all just shtick, right? It's like gimmick after gimmick after, hey, just turn your toes inward more on squat and you'll get more dry. And no, you don't. Look, this is tried and tested for hundreds of years. Strength didn't just appear this year.
Right.
People have been doing it for a long period of time. And it's across the board. If you look at I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, right? If you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the greatest Jiu-Jitsu competitor in history is Roger Gracie. And everything he does is like white belt level, techniques. But he does it so good that even when people know it's coming, they can't stop it.
That's right.
Fundamentals. Yeah.
And I think that's maybe what caused me to stand out a little bit from the rest of the crowd, because we've spun them back around to the ultra basics, and a lot of the guys had never been schooled correctly to begin with in terms of progressive resistance training, so they found it was very revolutionary. And we're like, "No, it's not revolutionary. This is what you should have been taught right from the beginning."
Yeah.
Well, I had completely changed at 30 years old how I did lifting, period. Like I reset all my bench press technique, my squat, deadlift, everything. Completely changed it to how fortunately we have multi-time world champions to come in and coach that have been under you, Kirk Kowalski and Brad Gillingham. And so just the minute details are so crucially important for longevity.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And proper planning. If everybody just goes in there and is going crazy with the workouts without a plan and without some goals, that's when you get hurt.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the pre that really sets you up for everything. If I'm going out on a mission, it's the preparatory that prepares us for the mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing here with lifting. You need to have your mindset right, your diet, your recovery, everything pre-planned out before you even start a cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, they credit Bruce Lee with saying it, but I don't think he said it. He said, "I don't fear the man who has done 10,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who's done one kick 10,000 times." That's us.
Yeah, I think there's a definitely a truth to that. I mean, it's enduring.
And I think one of the biggest things and reasons why you guys latched on to Marty's template was because time investment. I mean, here you were being shown how to get maximum results in the least amount of time, what, maybe a half hour to an hour, because, and Marty's told us
Well,
many,
no, whoa. It's the top guys are not going to be able to power through in that short of a time period. There's too many warm-up sets involved.
Yeah,
That 30-minute stuff, that's great if you're doing 3 sets in each of the 4
Right.
core lifts. But if you're an elite athlete, it's going to take you longer.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well,
So, but I mean, that's what really appealed to you guys, because look at all the other stuff that you guys are responsible for doing in a day. I mean, what, jumping out of airplanes and all kinds of stuff.
That's right.
You gotta whittle this down. You have to be very exact with your time. You gotta have a very tight schedule. So this really worked into there, meshed in very well.
Yeah, you're right, JP. You know, most of my workouts never go longer than 45 minutes, and if they do, it's because I'm socializing. You know what I mean? It's me and my training partners. And to Marty's response, also, that's also true. If I'm going to my maximums, then I have to have a little bit more recovery time in between my heavy sets to kind of prepare. I need probably 5 minutes of mentally and physically resetting myself and preparing for the next repetitions.
Sure.
But yeah, it's true. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been in there cranking out a max squat with, 3 spotters around me, yelling in my ear, charging me up, and then as soon as I put the bar down, they go, "Hey, we're launching in 30 minutes." And I go running out of the tent and throw my gear on, and next thing I know, I'm hiking 10 miles and climbing over a mountain range in Afghanistan.
As long as you got your squats in, you're all right, man. You got your
Well,
squats.
in the end, I'm coming to find out more and more that active recovery seems to be a lot more efficient for me than just laying down and doing nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So when you're saying active recovery, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I keep moving. So like if I have a heavy squat workout, let's say I usually do it on Fridays.
Right.
Saturday and Sunday, instead of just lounging around and feeling sorry for myself because my legs hurt, I'll go for a walk. I'll ride a bike. I'll play more than anything, because I have a 10-year-old daughter. I go out and play with her. We play basketball or soccer or throw the ball, football, and running around and little micro sprints and things like that. And by Monday, I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Keeping everything loose, keeping it warm,
Yeah, not cranking it out. I'm not, going on power walk or anything,
Right.
backpack, but I'm just doing fun things and I'm staying active and swimming or surfing or whatever. And I feel much better doing it that way than if I just fully lounge and rest. It seems like I have a harder time getting started on Monday.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Now, when you, it's a different world for you guys when you're stateside as opposed to when you're deployed in terms of available training time.
The time you have, yeah.
So, how do you make that how do you make that transition? I mean, our system, we try to make it like an accordion, where if you're pressed for time, it can be done in as little as 1 day. If you're really pressed, come in and squat and bench, deadlift, be done with it. But if you have tons of time, you can open the thing up, spread it out, attack lifts on individual days, back it up with assistance work. How did that work for you guys?
Yeah, so one of the good things that the SEALs do is we prioritize our human performance. We say, hey, no matter what, doesn't matter if I'm on a trip, what I'm doing, the first 2 hours of the morning is everybody musters up, and then you go and do your workouts. And workouts are individualized because everybody's different. Everybody's got different injuries. Everybody's got different interests. So some guys will go lift, some guys will go fight. It'll change up, but we always mandatory. You have that free time in the morning to get it done, and it just becomes part of your culture. So when I'm deployed or anything else, the minute I wake up, I got to get things moving again. Doesn't matter if I was out all night doing a hit, doing a few raids or whatever. I get my sleep. I wake up. I immediately go in and I start working out. And even like I said earlier, maybe it's just 30 minutes, maybe it's just 45, but I go in, I crank it out, and then I start my day. And for me, you know, with all the anxieties in life, and especially in that type of a job, I have to get up and work out. And
Ah,
otherwise, I'm going to be crabby all day long,
Sets
and
your
I'm not
day,
going to
doesn't
think
it?
clearly.
Sets your
Right.
day. Yeah.
And it goes farther than that. It goes to the night before. So before I go to sleep, instead of me laying there going, I got bills to pay, I got this stress, I got that stress, I have this anxiety, I just think about what's tomorrow's workout. And whether it's a fighting workout or whether it's a lifting workout, I go through all the points of performance in my head. I slow my breathing down. I do diaphragmatic breathing at night. I calm down, I relax, and I'm singularly focused in my mind on what the task is going to be in the morning, what my workout is. And I don't think about any of the stresses in life until after my workout. And then when I'm in the shower, I'm like, what does my day look like? But it's okay because I've already done that roller coaster ride of endorphins and dopamine, and I'm
mm,
mentally reset. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm ready to face the day. I'm not waking up. Like if I go to bed filled with anxiety, I wake up stressed, the rest of my day is going to snowball in a negative direction. So
It's
this
set,
way, I fully mentally reset. I can't work out in the evenings. I can only do it in the mornings.
yeah, couldn't either.
Yeah, that's when we do it. What about when you guys are on deployment? I mean, most of the time, did you have decent equipment to use, or how is that?
50-50. I would say because us and the SEALs put so much emphasis into our human performance
Right.
that we haul equipment everywhere we go. It doesn't matter if we're on a ship or at an outstation or a remote location. We haul the gear out there and get our workouts. And it isn't just us and a kettlebell. I feel for the guys that have to do that, where off the side of their tank they just have a TRX and a kettlebell, but they're getting it done, and then they're doing what's right. But for us, yeah, we have a squat rack. We'll have the fundamentals. We'll have a squat rack, a bench. We'll have a couple barbells. We'll have some dumbbells. We'll have what's needed to get the job done.
What if you're out in the desert for a week, on some sort of a mission? You don't have any buildings or anything close by. I mean, what do you do then?
Well, I mean, if I'm in the desert for a week, I'm probably doing raids all night long, and I'm getting in fist fights every night with the enemy, and I'm getting in shootouts. That's a
So you're
pretty good
doing
workout.
cardio.
That's a good workout, isn't it?
You have to think about it. When I assault a target, like I'll hike usually, 6 miles in or so. I'll climb over a mountain range to get there because you want to create some space between you and your target. As I move up to the target, a guy will climb into my hands and I'll throw him up onto the walls. In Afghanistan, they have these huge 10 to 15-foot walls all the way around their compounds for their own protection. And I'll pitch a guy up there to get a look into the compound to see what he sees, or kind of do overwatch. And then I'll go over and help breach the door or knock it down or climb up something else. And if one guy gets shot, I got to pick them up and get them off the target. Many, many times I've had to push vehicles that potentially had explosives in them off the target. I've had to roll vehicles over on several occasions to get them out of the road after we've done an ambush or whatever. I mean, strength has been, and I'm carrying 30 to 40 pounds of gear.
That's
And
what I was wondering.
And I'm
What?
streamlined.
Yeah.
That's streamlined down, but that's my gun, my helmet, my night vision goggles, a ton of ammunition, and my body armor.
Yeah.
Marty, can you tell that kettlebell story?
Well,
So
story.
the one, if I think it was Hendo that asked, or somebody asked if they were going to be using kettlebells, and Hendo chimed in about having to. He weighs 300 pounds with his gear, and I want somebody to.
Yeah. I don't know. We were doing the way that they ran it when they would bring us in is we would go in for like 5 days straight. It wasn't like you're going to go in for 2 hours. We go in for 5 damn days, and it'd be 2 sessions a day. Theoretically, 4 hours a session. Then we usually cut the second one a little bit.
Right.
And I think the first or the second time we were down there, one of the guys wasn't complaining, but he was just kind of wondering, why all this emphasis on the deadlift. And Hendo kind of snapped up a little bit, and he said, "I'll tell you why, and I'll leave out the expletives." But he said, because if I get hit when I'm geared up, I'm weighing what, 300, 320? What are you weighing geared up? Yeah,
315. Yeah.
Yeah, 315 pounds. And he said, if you can't deadlift 400 pounds, you ain't going to pull me out of the middle of the gunfire because you got to be returning fire with the other hand. Okay.
Right.
You've got to have that kind of strength, and you're not going to get it flinging a 52-pound kettlebell around and quote unquote. And everybody was like, dead silence, crickets. And they got it. And then I stood up and I said, every guy in this room should have at least a double body weight deadlift. I said, my wife has a double body weight deadlift. Come on, boys. You know, and they were shocked by that. They were like, well, you know, standards. And again, we're real big on standards. So one of the things that Hendo and I talked about is like, what is sort of the baseline, you know? And if you're talking, you can come up with some intelligent, rational guidelines for a good raw squat, double body weight, okay? A raw bench, 1.5 times body weight, okay? A deadlift, 2.5 times body weight. A press or a power clean, body weight. So what does that mean? A 200-pound guy, he's got a raw squat, 400, below parallel, thank you. He's got a bench with no crazy ass coming off the bench, 300. He's got a deadlift, 500. He's got a press 200, and he's got a power clean 200. And that's not any world record stuff. That's like everybody in this room should be able to do that.
And it gives them goals to shoot for too. If
Yeah.
they've had no experience in the background of doing the basic lifts, you know, what seemed to me is that there was a separation of guys where they're really into the cardio stuff and really into that, getting that feeling where they're exhausted. And then you sort of had your group who was from your influence, you know, let's get stronger and then do the cardio stuff. And that's more of a sprinting and prowler and sled work, things like that.
Yeah, I really like the strongman exercises. I think there's a lot of parallels to the mission with it. And I don't want to downplay kettlebells. Kettlebells do play an important role also in our exercises, but maximum strength is most important. And then you get into your endurance strength. So my focus with my guys was overall strength, with the big four of strength of, squat, bench, deadlift, and military press. And then anything after that is just kind of fluff. But it's important also to do, anaerobic exercises. Fighting is one of the most important things. I may or may not shoot somebody on target, but I'm 100% putting my hands on somebody. So I need to, and for some reason, that's one of the least thing that's trained in the military period is hand-to-hand combat. So there should really be a prioritized.
Why do you suppose that is?
Well, there's a lot of things that tie in. There's ego, fighting hurts.
Right.
But if it's done properly, and I did the same thing with fighting. I reached out to all the experts in the world and I brought in guys and I'm like, look, we can't be hurting each other. What's the best way for us to train and be the most effective without destroying ourselves? And that's where guys like Dave Camarillo and Conan Silveira and Gustavo Machado all came out and were just like, hey, this is the smartest way to train. This is the most effective way to train. And, if you watch me and some of the guys at work and you guys have trained, it looks like a UFC fight. We're going at it with each other, but we've started off at a really basic controlled level of jabbing back and forth and light takedowns. And then we just kind of go a little faster, but they know how to give, they know how to fall, they know how to parry, you know what I mean? So from somebody that's looking from the outside, it looks like a scrap, but to us, it's an extremely controlled
practice session
conflict. And it's the same with weightlifting. I can die under a squat bar just as easily as I can die in combat. Any slight deviation of my knee or not having the right footwear, or having stuff laying around the squat rack, these can be catastrophic to a person. Right. So you really have to be hyper-focused and you have to take everything to the fundamental level and you just got to slowly work your way up, crawl, walk, run until you're getting into what you need to prepare properly for the battlefield.
Right. Hendo, I want to ask you, when I was there with you guys, I noticed that as far as the size and strength of the guys, it was just all over the place. I mean, you had some really strong, big dudes there, a lot of muscle. But then you had some guys that looked like they were very endurance-based guys. I mean, is that by design or is that purely just an individual thing?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to steer people away from the stereotype that all SEALs are giant gorillas walking around, because we need every type of person. I need little guys that can climb into tunnels. I need big guys that can throw guys over walls. I need the little guy that gets thrown over the wall. A lot of our snipers tend to be more endurance type of athletes because they need to sprint up the top of a mountain peak to do Overwatch. And it's not something that some of us bigger guys need, but everybody plays a different role. The breachers will be bigger, the snipers will be smaller. You need a little bit of a full spectrum.
That totally makes sense. So when you guys are bringing in a new guy, you kind of consider that sort of thing. Well, we need a bigger guy right now to replace the bigger guy that's leaving or whatever.
Well, you get what you get what you get.
Yeah.
I don't recruit based
You don't
off
have that much
body
choice.
type, no. But yeah, there's very few of us as there is. But you can
Yeah.
build somebody to become anything you want them to be, right? And my
Mhm.
only priority was you need to carry me off the X. That's the only thing I cared about is you need to
Right.
be able to handle yourself in a combative situation. You need to be able to close distance, strike, clinch, take down, control hands, handcuff them, marshal them off the target in a safe manner, not using as much force as necessary, but only using as much as needed. And it's the same with strength. I just need you to be strong enough to pick me up and drag me off the X. And it's something that it transcends just being a SEAL. It's us as human beings. If somebody falls on the street or if your child falls, you don't want to become a casualty trying to move them.
Or ask for help.
I mean, you're useless. Like, run over there, pick the person up, get them off the threat area, be able to catch your child if they're about to fall off a cliff or whatever, and not become a casualty yourself. It's just normal human being stuff.
Right.
Also, I want to bring something up here. One of you, well, JP, I want to move into the age thing a little bit. You clicked over the half-century mark in May, right, Hendo?
Yeah, May 14th.
Why don't you tell them what you did to celebrate?
Well, yeah, to go back a little, you and I had talked, Marty, about what I can do to get longevity. I use you and Gillingham kind of as my elder mentors to go. I call you every year on your birthday, and I'm like,
Yes,
what
you
could you have
do.
done better? If you were my age, what could you have done so you'd be more effective at your age, right? As you're climbing into your 80s, 90s, something like that.
39, just turned 39. Okay.
I think 70 is the number we're looking at. But and you said, look, your body's going to atrophy, your muscles are going to atrophy, your bones are going to become brittle, your tendons are going to become weaker. So stay ahead of it. We can't stop it, but we can slow it down. And so I thought, okay, what's the best way to do that? And again, what makes me effective as a public servant, as a human being? You know what I mean? And I thought strength endurance would probably be it. So I did double body weight for 50 reps because I turned 50.
Okay. Well, now give him the body weight though.
Well, 250.
250, double body weight,
Well,
500.
246.
Okay.
So I deadlifted 500 pounds for 50 reps, 4 sets of 10 and 2 sets of 5.
Damn.
God damn, couldn't you have got the last set of 10, Hendo? I mean, come on, man.
Was that all in one day? You did that all in a
I
row?
was about midway through. I wished I never did this. And it's the same thing that I do to myself. It's a way I motivate myself into a training. Is I go, okay, I'm going to do some astronomical feat, whether it's fighting or strength. I'm going to go tell everybody. So I shame myself into
Put
doing
yourself
it.
in the spot. He called me. You know what I said? Don't do it. That's crazy. That's what I said. I said, don't do it. I said, how about 10? Let me see. I figured it out. You needed I wanted him to do triples, right? So to get 50 reps, he'd have to do what? 20 sets of 3 or something. And he's like, no, I got it. And then what was it? Your training, you didn't do a regular deadlift off the floor? How did that work?
Would you do backs and stuff?
Yeah, this is Brad Gillingham is the one that talked me through this. And
now let's just mention Brad, our friend. We keep mentioning Brad. Brad Gillingham is the 3-time IPF super heavyweight world champion. Brad has deadlifted 800 plus pounds. What, I think 104 times
In competition.
Officially, the second most number of 800-pound deadlifts is 38.
Mm-hmm.
So Brad is what, 6'5", 330, and he's just a man mountain. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we keep mentioning Brad, and I just wanted to put him into perspective. Go ahead, Dave.
yeah, I mean, he's also the world champion of being a nice human being. He's
Oh, we love him.
Yeah, he's a
in your life.
great guy.
He's also a Minnesotan like John Foss was. Just
Yeah.
great people there in Minnesota. Maybe not so much in Minneapolis anymore. But
He called me after you sent him that video, and he goes, I just got to tell somebody about this. Hendo is doing this crazy shit. He goes, you wouldn't believe it. It's like 50, 500 pounds, all the, because he's turning 50. He goes, this guy's crazy.
And his
I just had to call somebody and tell it.
Yeah, and his last sentence in the email was, I never seen anything like it. And I just pictured him saying that, I never seen anything like it while he's shrimp or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to go back to how I trained it, was he's the one that kind of turned me on to partials. In my mind, the two different I just call them the Gillinghams. They're the week and a 16-week program are the best. I've had 100% success rate with anybody that's ever tried it. And so people can reach out to him to get those. But in a 16-week, there's a lot of partials. And so I go, well, I've had great success with going to new weights with partials, going to heavier weights. Why don't I try it for endurance? So at the time, this was back in January, I pulled 500 for 5. And I was like, I wonder if I can do it for 50 if I just, gradually work up. So I started about the first January, February, I was kind of just started with 315 and doing 5 sets of 10 and then kind of working my way up. And I also had transitioned over to double overhand versus an over-under grip on the deadlift, which is something Gillingham kind of turned me on to.
And you're not hooking though.
Yeah, I was hook gripping. Yeah.
Oh, you were hooking?
I hooked it, yeah.
Okay.
It shortens the pull and it's safer too.
Oh, it's safer, yeah, for sure.
You won't tear your bicep,
Right.
probably.
No, but you'll tear the hell out of your thumbs. Because if you saw in
gotta just numb the nerve.
video, I only did like 2 sets with it. And then by then, at the end of the program, my thumbs were so worn out. And then of course I looked and I noticed Olympic lifters tape their thumbs. I go, damn, that was a good idea. I should have done that. And, in hindsight. But so I started above the knee and I did, you could do almost any weight above the knee. If you can do 5 reps of 500 there, doing 5 sets of 10 above the knee in the deadlift is pretty easy. It wasn't that hard at all. And then every week I just went down, 2 inches until the day of. And
now, were you 10 repping?
Yeah, I was 10 repping.
Okay.
And every week I was getting my reps. And then Marty goes, well, how many have you pulled off the floor? And because I told him, hey, next week I'm doing this lift. And I said, none.
Oh my God. I'm like, don't do it. That's crazy.
But it went. And when I did it, it wasn't so bad. It wasn't, the hardest rep with because of the deadlift style that we do.
Yeah.
Pulling it, getting it off the ground
That's
is the hardest part. But once it's off, I'm good for 10 reps.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're rolling. That's what Cassidy used to say. Give me 1, I'll give you 2.
Yeah, or more, definitely.
Or more.
Because I definitely wasn't at my maximum weight, right?
But still, you weren't doing 5 sets of 10. You were doing 1 set of 10.
No, I was doing 5 sets of 10 every week.
In the rack.
In the rack.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Cool. Okay.
And here's
what were your jumps weekly? What were your jumps?
10 to 20 pounds. At first it was 20s, and then I just went, okay, I'm at 500 after my second month, and I still had, it was like February, so I still had March, April, May, so I had 2.5 more months to go. So I just kept it at 500. I didn't go over it, and I didn't go under it. I just kept it right at 500.
Yeah, good.
Our problem with rack work is we would have a tough time transitioning from the rack to the, our correct floor technique. Did you find you were able to like drop right back into a good ground technique, or were you?
Yeah. And I had, as I got lower and lower, I kind of went to your frog style where I pushed my knees out over my feet that were slightly canted out.
Yep.
And then to get it off the floor, I would start pushing my knees in. And first I would sit back, so the bar's already starting to come off the ground. Then I'd push my knees in, and that would give me another inch or two, and then my legs would be pretty straight at that point, and it would just be all posterior chain pushing it up.
Yeah. And Hendo is back strong.
Yeah. I had tried for the first 3 months to match it with squats. And I also was going to try and do the whole thing with no belt. I was able to do it with no hand wraps, but my back just got worn out between walking the bar out, 5 sets of 10 with a heavy weight, and you tend to get a little lazy, and I didn't have spotters, and so my back was just starting to ache. So I'm just like, I'm gonna bag the squats and just keep it at some easy weight, 300-400 pounds, and just do a few sets of lighter reps, and then just focus on the deadlift. And there were several weeks that the only exercise I did that entire week was one set of deadlift, or 5 sets of deadlift. And only did that. I went in, I did my deadlifts, and I walked out of the gym because I was really busy with work at the time.
Well, you were recovering. It was a forced recovery, super recovery.
Yeah. And I was putting in a lot of miles walking every day and stuff, but with my job. But yeah, that was really all that was needed. Everything else was just accessory because the whole emphasis was on the deadlift.
And what are you doing anything with bench? You keeping that up, or what's going on there?
Yeah, well,
Overhead press?
3 months in, I got a really bad shoulder impingement that keeps bothering me. But so I still kept benching through it, but just real light. So I stayed really light with that. Squats never went above probably 350, 375. I started off earlier hitting 4s, and then I kind of just bagged it at that point and dropped the weight down. And I was only doing 3 sets of 3 or something, or 2 sets of 5. And then I was doing front squats to kind of get my foot drive up a little bit, but I did that as a warm up for my deadlifts.
Yeah, that's a bread trick.
Also, yeah, I did all of his tricks. I did rows and things. I was programmed by a buddy of mine, Matt Helm, over at Stand Strong Training Center. He's a real good guy, and we just kind of went back and forth. And I'm like, hey, I really want to try doing this, and he'd be like, okay, and then you just kind of build a program around it.
Now you do meets once in a while, right? You've done them before.
Powerlifting meets, yeah.
Yeah.
I do it in the fall.
You do it in the fall.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep doing that? I would imagine you're going to have more time to train if you need it now, and more.
Yeah.
More
So
rest
I'll
time.
always do powerlifting and Highland Games and stuff in the fall, and then I transition over. I enjoy the holiday, Christmas, and then I judo seasons in the spring, so I'll compete in judo, and then in the summer I'll do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I handled
Do you ever
in that one meet. You remember that?
A couple of them, I think.
Yeah, and so I was so nervous I wasn't going to make it from New Jersey down there in time that I got up at like 3, got right in the truck and drove down. And I'm sitting in the parking lot, and it's like 6:45 a.m. And I think weigh-in was at like 8:30 or something. So I called you, and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm here. And you're like, yeah, I'm just getting up and having some breakfast. So I'll be there in a little while. But I'm like, I'm here, man. I'm ready.
No, that was good. Yeah. Marty was there.
Yep,
Marty's handled me in a lot of my meets. If I go up to Pennsylvania, I like competing up there in Pennsylvania too. And
Yeah.
Marty's handled me in meets.
Kirk was there.
Yep, Kirk came.
So yeah, it was.
Oh boy.
Kirk, he's an interesting character. He's gregarious to say the least. But the most unique thing about Kirk is when you walk up to the squat rack and you're like, "Hey, talk me through this," he all of a sudden turns into Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's like this genius that knows every minute detail of everything. And you're just like, what the hell's coming out of his mouth? And 10 minutes later, he's talking about, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah. Getting back to that longevity thing, kind of one way to look at it is like, in my particular situation, I'm trying to hang on to what I had. I was doing a little thinking. On my birthday, I pulled. I hadn't done deadlifts in a year, but I had a streak going. So I pulled 405 on my birthday. I was 71. So we did the math. That's the 56th straight year that I pulled 400 or more. I stopped squatting 400 or more in 2015. I got a meniscus tear. So that was kind of the end of that. Right now, my strength level is about the same as it was when I was 16, right? So that's the way I'm looking at it. It's like, right, my bell curve was double my strength, like at age 35. And now at 70, I'm hanging on. And right now, I'm about the strength level I was at 16. When I'm 80, I want to have the strength level I had when I was 12. You know what I mean? But I had good strength at that point in time. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. Is it's you're hanging on to what you have. But I tell you, you can make progress, man. I'm telling you, you can always progress over where you are at currently. And that's the key factor. No matter how old you are, you can improve on where you're at right now.
Yeah, I still haven't hit my potential. Like I don't know what my limitations are at this point. They don't appear to exist just yet. So, and like you said, I just turned 50 and I just did a strength feat that I couldn't have achieved at any other point in my life.
Right.
So I'm like, well, what else can I do? So me and Brad are talking through going for maximal deadlift and see how I can go with that. And I'm gonna do the same thing with partials. Maybe I'll have something decent to uncork during the fall this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know when that is. What that, like my body hurts. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've did 16 combat tours. I've had numerous surgeries. But the excuse matrix doesn't really matter. Just do what you can do, but do it better than you've ever done in your life.
Yeah. Do you have an ultimate goal for the deadlift? I mean, if you still haven't reached your maximum potential, I mean, what are you thinking? What's your goal?
I would like to get in the 7s. I would like to get as close to triple body weight as possible.
Man.
Well, you better get you better get to losing some weight.
Get down to about 220. That seems to be the magic number.
Well, I did that once. With
yeah,
Marty.
you did. Oh, yeah, you did. Oh, God,
that was one of my. That was one of my lesser ideas. Yeah, I was like, hey, well, because I naturally sit about 250, and I compete at 242, and the 242 cut is pretty easy for me. But I go, you know what? I'm going to go down to 220, and if I'm this strong at 250, we'll see where I'm there. But I think I kept all the fat. I just lost the muscle.
So he rolled into my house with 2 team members, right, who were also competing, and they took me aside and they said, "Watch out, he's very tense." and he weighed in. As soon as we weighed in Friday night, the best restaurant in our area is the Dobbins House over in Gettysburg. So I said, "Hey, I have an idea as to where to go." And he goes, "We're going to the Dobbins House." And I said, "Now, how in the hell did he know that that was the best restaurant in my area?" And that's where we went. And
I had 6 months to research.
I don't know. I don't know. I think everybody ate 2 dinners, and loaves of bread were disappearing. I think by the time he lifted the next day, you were like 235 or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I'll never do that again. That was a horrible idea because my body was just breaking down at that point.
Yeah.
Like I was like coming out of a starvation camp.
Hey, let me go back to the fighting thing real quick. What were the disciplines that you did that you thought helped you most on the battlefield?
Well, they all play a role. I think it's the mixture of them.
Okay.
That comes in the most. Like I would say, if I could pick 3, it would be wrestling, of course, is the most dominant. Kickboxing played an important role for keeping space and distance until I can clinch and do my takedown. And then either judo or jiu-jitsu on the ground. I would probably say jiu-jitsu because you're slowly controlling them. You're controlling their hands. You're controlling their hips. You're controlling their posture. And then you're getting them to a point of being handcuffed. Instead of submission, I'm going for the handcuff ultimately, or choking them unconscious or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you,
Go ahead.
Hendo, I'm sure you always had the upper hand out there, but did you ever run into a guy or two and go, you know what, this guy knows some stuff. This guy's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good fighters out there. I mean, not as much in Iraq. Like we ran into some big guerrillas that were like, we launched a dog on him and he caught our dog in midair and threw it across the room.
Wow.
Like, oh God, this is gonna be difficult. But yeah, I would say, people we've gone against. I don't even really want to mention which countries they're from, but from the Caucasus, people from the Caucasus are great fighters, and they're really good people too. And I don't want to say it's very rare that some zealots from those countries can
remember the story you told me about the family of wrestlers that you came across?
Oh shit.
Yeah. Well, fortunately they were friendly to us, but yeah, I walked up to at this point we had hit 3 or 4 houses in this neighborhood, and I don't know if you guys want me to tell the whole thing, but essentially by the time I'd gotten to I think it's important to
tell her.
capture the whole thing.
Yeah.
It kind of segues into the next. We need to shift
Yes.
to the broader topic. So this is a good segue.
Well, we were told to clear these two neighborhoods, right? And really the way the neighborhoods were set up were houses back to back. And so one team went down one street and my team went down the other street. And the ones that went to the street on the right, they ran up and immediately there was a huge dog in the yard. So they shot the dog and then the family came out screaming. And then because the dog just got shot and then they're running, they're shoving the family around because they're acting erratic. And that whole side of the street went from, breaching doors and shotguns going off. And it really escalated in a negative way. And my side of the street, I ran up and I was the primary breacher at the time. So I ran up to the door and the door was open and an old lady was there. And I just kind of gently moved her over to the side and I smiled at her and the guys went in and kind of cleared, she only had a 1-bedroom place, but she like grabbed my arm and she's like kissing me on the cheek and leads me over to a table and she's trying to feed me figs and cheese. And I go, okay, well, let's kind of ramp down a little bit. This seems like a friendly neighborhood. So I went to the next house and they were just like welcoming us in. Like I just went up and knocked on the door instead of kicking it in. They're just like, yeah, come on in. You search whatever, do whatever you want. You guys want a 7-Up, whatever, like really kind. And our side of the street was in a very friendly manner. So about 7-8 houses in, the whole neighborhood's out at this point because on the other street, they just hear mayhem. And on our side, I walked up to the fence and there's a guy standing there. He's a short guy, probably like 5'4"-ish, with older, probably in his 60s, with big cauliflower ears.
Yeah, there you go.
And I walked up to him and I'm like, hey, are you a wrestler? Through my interpreter. And he's like, yeah, come on in. And then we went inside and he's got these gorillas for sons that all have huge hands and cauliflower ears. And they're like, yeah, we're part of I'm like, are you guys on the Iraq national wrestling team? And they're like, no, we're part of an underground club. Because Uday, at the time the son of Saddam Hussein, if you lost in certain competitions or whatever whim he felt, he would just kill you. And he was in charge of the whole Olympic training program. You know what I mean? So they had just wrestled in underground programs. And I just thought, wow, if we went into this house the same way those guys are going into that house on the other side, guys are going to get launched out of windows and then we're going to have to shoot them. And over what? We don't even... I asked them, I'm like, hey, do you know where this guy is that we're looking for? Like, oh yeah, he's an asshole. I'm sorry, don't mean to cuss. But he's like, yeah, he lives in that house right there. Go ahead and go. I'll walk you over there and we'll go see if he's in there. And he wasn't there. And they are like, he's been gone for a few weeks. And, they were super friendly neighborhood. They're like, thank you for coming and helping us in our country and blah, blah. And on the other side, they were making enemies. So
Hendo, that was kind of a turning point because you said all your battlefield mentors had come out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it was like, you mentioned on your website, we were killing butterflies with sledgehammers.
Well, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
Like I was part of, on paper, the best combat fighting force in the world because we'd proved it in exercises. We'd proved it in pristine targets that were, sterilized. And now all of a sudden we're in a real fight and we're like, oh, what we thought all along isn't the right way of doing things. And we came in, we're violence of action, win the fight. But that works if you're fighting against like a hardened enemy that's in a compound. If you're just going out and hitting houses with violence of action, you're just creating more enemies. So we started going, hey, we need to ramp down a little bit. We need to start de-escalating force. We need to start controlling our emotions, having emotional intelligence. We need to start thinking, using more critical thinking, being more creative in how we hit these targets. And, start not so much to win hearts and minds, but just to have less collateral damage. And our, none of us, we all came up in that kind of John Wayne era where, you protect the women and children and you only fight men that are stepping up to fight, and everybody else, you kind of look and protect them. You protect the innocent, you do what's right. So that was kind of our focus. And we just had to transition and go, okay, well, everything we had learned up till now was wrong. We have to kind of refocus and do the right thing and ensure that the secondary and tertiary effects aren't hurting the public.
So after that mission, did you guys kind of regroup and discuss all that and kind of evolve from then on?
Well, it's 50-50. You're always going to have this is just early on. You're always going to have the diehards that are like, oh, it's all in or nothing. You know what I mean? Or we're complacent. Mm-hmm. So we go, okay, well, what's a happy medium? How can we do this and be fast and effective while at the same time escalating and de-escalating as necessary? And then we just started training it. And then, I was part of a command that was very innovative. Anytime, we got shot at, or if one of our guys got hit, we'd be like, how could this possibly have happened? Let's play the whole thing out. Let's drill it 1,000 times and ensure that this never happens again in the future. And then that started becoming the theme. And now it's, everybody does it that way, at least in our organization.
Yeah. So now,
go ahead, man.
Right. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, I was just going to shift gears, and I think this is a good lead in to now that you're out. You're sharing some of these same tactical approaches with some different agencies, correct?
Yeah. So I was retired for about a week, and this was in September. And I was sitting on my couch drinking a beer, kind of watching the news, going, "What am I going to do with the rest of my life?" And it's mayhem. There's riots, there's murders, cops are being assaulted everywhere. The media is just painting this horrible picture of our security. And I just thought, man, somebody should do something about this. And I went, oh, well, nobody's going to do shit unless they step up and do it. So instead of sitting around and complaining and, trolling on the internet, I'll just go out and do something. So I created 2 organizations, Henderson Security Consultancy, which I do all variations of security. I teach families how to protect themselves, synagogues, private companies, apartments, colleges, hospitals. I do that for profit. And then I have a nonprofit called 4 Pillars Collective. And I kind of just brought together a bunch of the best fighters in the world, and, real true patriotic people, and some cops and people with backgrounds. You have to have at least a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because you know how to control people, how to control your emotions. So we started training law enforcement, especially in defunded cities, and these simple de-escalation measures. That this is okay. I just go to them and I say, what are your rules of engagement? Essentially, what are your general orders? What are the laws that you have to follow? And a lot of the cities have different ones. Chokes are obviously out. So I'm like, okay, well, let me show you how to control people and take them down. And, then let's build in emotional intelligence. Let's build in critical thinking, stress mitigation, all these different things into the physical restraint so that we can handle the people better. Because you don't always have to have, put hands on people. You can talk them down a little bit, but I still need to kind of orient myself in a manner that if they do decide to amp up and attack me, that I can quickly defend, control them, and get them safely off of that threat area before a riot or something else breaks out. And we see all the time where one little mistake that an officer will make gets filmed and blown out of proportion, and then all of law enforcement is punished for it. Yeah. So I train with, like, everything you're doing is being filmed. You're essentially living a movie now, right? So you want to be in a movie that your peers, your family, your organization is going to be proud of. So I kind of train them on how to control themselves, control their measures, be effective, and use a lot of the tactics that we used on the battlefield from a de-escalation standpoint with the public, so that we can kind of bridge that gap again between the public and law enforcement. The whole point of 4 Pillars, the reason I came up with that was it comes off of our national security strategy, and it's broken down into 4 enduring pillars. It's security, it's prosperity, it's shared values, and international order. I've done my part in international order in fighting overseas and keeping the enemy away, but our own security is being compromised. And when our own security is compromised, then prosperity goes down the tube, which you see in all these cities that with the riots, and they can't rebuild to this day. And then if we don't have our security right and we're not wealthy, the other countries don't want to hear our values. They don't want to hear what we have to say. And we're supposed to be the gold standard for the world to look at. So that's how I got into it, and that's what I'm doing now. I travel once a month at this point because we're just getting started, and training SWAT teams and police departments all over the U.S. and Chicago, New York, and here in Virginia. And,
how's the reception been?
It's great, and it's something that I think the public really needs to understand. Everybody's going like, why aren't the cops getting more training, and why aren't they doing? These cops are paying out of their pocket to go to different training places, and fortunately, I'm able to provide it for free through donor money. And I can bring in these other experts to help out. But, in Chicago, 60 officers showed up on a weekend, off duty, on their own time, and went in there and came in early and left late and did their, worked out, exchanged ideas and concepts. And we're just like, hey, we're all trying to get better. We're trying to do our job better. But, we just need a little bit of assistance. And I think it's important for everybody to know that the cops are doing it. They're trying as hard as they can. They're getting extra training, even though their departments aren't giving it to them. And they're not funding it. They have
Amazing.
all the money is focused on equity and critical race theory and all these things that aren't effective for a healthy and secure society. What we need to do is all kind of come together and go, how can we all be safe? And if we're all safe, we can all get more money and we're all more happier. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And I think what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
I think what you guys are doing is the future. And I think it's helping bridge that gap between law enforcement and the public. And that's what's needed. Just like you said, we all need to come together. It's we all live in the same society, the same neighborhoods. So we're all human. So we need to come together and kind of understand one another. And you're right with your tactics. I mean, you don't need full force. You need more understanding. And sometimes you just got to knock on the door.
Yeah, in the SEALs, I fight to the death alongside of brothers and sisters of every possible nationality, economic background. None of us even think about identity politics. We're not like, oh, I'm part of this or I'm part of that. We're just like, how do we get the mission done?
Right.
How are we focused? What's the most effective way to do our task, both from a combat standpoint and from a humanity standpoint? And the general public needs to kind of steer away from this. I'm on this team or I'm on that team, and just go, what can I do that's the best for society? And that's why I say with the deadlift, I know for a fact that I can pick 50 people up off of a bad spot and drag them off the X. You know what I mean? Because that's what I'm training.
So how does this all kind of work? I mean, somebody will contact you through your website and, say it's a police department in, like Chicago. You mentioned Chicago. They can request you guys come out for a day or a couple of days, or to have you address certain things, or is it a template you go out there with? How's it work?
A couple different things. So I have a slightly different template for the PD versus SWAT teams. I kind of will do a little bit more with hostage rescue with SWAT teams, but a lot of it is enduring. They can just contact fourpillarscollective.com, and within there, there's a connection to get a hold of me. But without money, we're not going anywhere. I just need enough money to cover our flights and lodging and stuff, and to bring a couple other instructors out. Another nice thing that happened in Chicago that I saw was other UFC fighters or former UFC fighters. It just heard about what we were doing and then showed up at the gym, and they're just like, "How can we help?"
Yeah,
they gave up their weekend, and it gave me a better sense of humanity. I live, like I said, in a really isolated community within the SEALs, especially in the group where we only hung out together, we only did things together, and I really didn't know the civilian populace very much, aside from what I see on the askewed media. And so I kind of was just like, it's easy to get in that biased negative mentality of humanity is screwed, there's nothing we can do, it's all going to burn, so let's just protect our own in our house and leave it at that. But since I've been going out and seeing all these cops volunteering their personal time to come in and train, and former fighters coming in saying, we like what you're doing, how can we help? It renews my sense of, oh, we're all in this together, but we're just at an embryonic stage. We're at a baby level that needs to expand.
So when you do someone hires you, like a family hires you to come to their house, and do you tell them the security, leaks in the house? And
that's right. Well, it transcends that. So for Henderson Security, I go into emergency action plans, not just for fire, but for if somebody breaks into your house, and where are your fighting points? What do you have around you that can protect when you leave your house, which is usually the biggest threat, and you're going to your vehicle? We're seeing right now where people are getting regularly carjacked at gas stations, coming out of a store, these poor women that are trying to load their babies into a car, load their groceries into a car. People are running up and jacking their cars or stealing their stuff or robbing their purse. So I teach them situational awareness. I teach them third-party awareness. I teach them how to defend themselves, how to position themselves, stay off their phones when they're moving from point A to point B, when to lock their doors, when not to. So it goes a little bit deeper. And then, of course, all different forms of improvised and regular weapons manipulations, and I'll take them into a restaurant, just be like, okay, where are your outs? You should always be thinking, how can I escape from here? If I'm in a mall, how do I escape?
Yeah.
Where are my weapons? Who looks like a threat? Are two people casing on either side of me? The nice thing about COVID is we understand social distancing. When somebody starts cracking into that 6-foot barrier, you're kind of like, what are they doing?
Something's
You know what I
off.
mean? And you start angling. Well, you start angling. You start taking a look at their hands, their waist. Are they hiding a weapon? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I train families. I'm starting to get into helping out at synagogues because they're been getting attacked a lot lately. Universities, when you send your kid to college, you don't want some crazy security guard in there that's going to jerk his gun and start blasting away. You want them to de-escalate matters and control, drunk kids and things like that, or trespassers, and move them off site without doing any kind of collateral damage or creating a scene. You know what I mean? Especially people that donate to hospitals and universities. You want your security to be calm and collected.
Does it surprise you that they don't have this type of knowledge when you go in places?
Yeah, it does.
You don't know that,
Well, they have something, but unless you've gone through what I've gone through,
right.
you're not going to know the intricacies of it, and you're not going to know the best practices and techniques.
Right.
Well, the man who is you're immersed in violence, so you know how best to not get involved in the first place. I mean, you're the perfect perfect guy for this, right?
It's kind of the sad thing. Yeah, I'm like one of the best kidnappers in the world, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I've been traveling around the world snatching people.
Yeah.
But and that's how I look when I look at somebody's home. I'm like, how would I come in and take your family? How would I come in and take your things? How would I snatch you off the street? Or where are your weak points or choke points and things like that? I play all that out on how I would target somebody. Yeah,
like a hacker.
I reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Yep.
What about the emotional side of it? The critical thinking and all this, the breathing. I know you're into very much into breathing and slowing the heart rate. And are you teaching all these tactics to these guys? And
I do. We start off in powerlifting. Even we do a lot of diaphragmatic breathing, and this is something that Marty and I had talked about in the past, is doing that mental reset in between sets, because I can't stay amped up, especially in a powerlifting meet, because powerlifting meets are all day. Yeah. So I need to have breaks, and I need to fully reset as much as I can before I go back out and lift. And it's just like a roller coaster ride of emotions and physical exertion. So I had actually got with Stig Severinsen, who's the Danish 4-time world freediving champion. He's the only guy I think I know of that has held his breath for 22 minutes. Anybody can YouTube that. And I'm like, okay, well, that creates panic. What do you do to control your anxieties? And he had taught me 1-2 breathing, which is inhaling through your nose. And you should always inhale through your nose unless your nose is so battered that you can't, because your nostril, your hair in your nostrils filters the bad particles. It converts to nitric oxide, which gets more oxygen than to your brain, like by 18%, I think. And then by taking it down to the lower part of your lungs, the lower 2/3 of your lungs is where all the oxygen is exchanged. So, in the old days, everybody was chest breathing and breathing up high and expanding their chest. Well, they're not getting enough oxygen, and you need to take it down as low. I try to think that I'm taking it all the way down to my pelvis, because, if I'm squatting or deadlifting, that's how I'm getting that belt. I'm tightening it all the way around. Yeah. So I'll inhale for 4 seconds through my nose. I just pause for a second, and then I'll either purse my lips or I'll push my tongue up to the bridge of my mouth, and I'll exhale for 8 seconds. And this 3 breaths will fully reset your sympathetic nervous system, right? Your autonomic nervous system. It'll transfer you from sympathetic to parasympathetic, which puts you in that rest and digest from your fight or flight. And so I teach officers that before you go and approach somebody, you're doing that right? You're already starting that breathing, you're calming yourself down. Now you're starting to scan for threats. You're starting to angle yourself on your approach. You're having a calm look on your face. You're looking at their hands. You're looking at their waist for any kind of threats. And you're calming yourself and relaxing as much as possible. And I teach them that it doesn't matter if that person's screaming at you, if he's freaking out, if he's out of control. You have to be talking and saying, calm down, relax, breathe. You're not so much talking to them, you're talking to your own ego and you're calming yourself down. The secondary effects of it is that my buddies will feed off of my energy and they'll be calm. And then hopefully the tertiary effect will be that the person that I'm approaching will then kind of feel off my demeanor and calm himself down as well. And this is a trick that I learned on the battlefield. I didn't always have to jump on somebody and scream at them. I could just go up, put hands on them, be calm, talk to them calmly. They don't have any idea what words are coming out of my mouth. They just know that I'm not escalating, right? And so they're happy that we're taking it in a different direction. And the same can be done on the street with the public.
Yeah, and if you're able to kind of harness that anxiety and calm that down, it helps your body language, and that helps you project calmness, like you're trying to do for your teammates or your law enforcement comrades, or and to the public as well. So
You know who has the best emotional intelligence in the law enforcement world is correctional officers, because all day long they're being cussed at, targeted, threatened, stared, analyzed, and when they transition over and become cops on the street, which a lot of them do, they're much better than the average cop at going up and talking to people and staying calm because they've been through it. They get it all day long, 24/7.
Yeah. They're just kind of numb to the the verbal assaults, and
Well,
they know.
It's
They know.
all it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just sounds coming out of a hole in somebody's
just
face.
sounds.
Yeah.
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 It's just noises. It doesn't
Can't hurt you.
Sticks and stones, right?
Right. Man. Well, I don't know. We could go on this all day. I mean, you've got such great information, but I think this is great. Your two companies that you started, especially Four Pillars Collective, I see a very bright future for this. Anytime you turn on the news, you can point to different situations and things going on where this could be utilized. So
It's so interesting, the analogies between preparation for like a huge lift or going into a situation where you're trying to control your heart rate, where you're working on your breathing. It just shows you nothing comes without that preparation. You have to have a plan, and you have to have a plan to be able to squat 800 or to go into, a group of 20 people with 2 officers.
You also have to have an improvisational mindset.
Right.
You have to be fluid. You have to be able to deal with the unexpected. What do you call them, Hendo? Contingency planning?
Yeah.
Why don't you riff on that for a minute?
Yeah, so as a tactical leader, that was the most important aspect of my job in the mission planning department, is contingency planning. So if usually our intel guy will come in and with a map and he'll point at a dot on the map and go, "This is our target." And I just start playing the whole thing out like a movie. I'm going to insert here if we get attacked here, and we're going to shift over to here. If as we're on our infill, if people come from the hills, we got to move this area. And I play this whole thing out, contingency. What's the worst case scenario that could happen, all the way through to the target and all the way back until we're home. And I do that with fighting. I do it with weightlifting. I do this and they do this, and what's the worst case? So I play it all and prepare it. When I was back at the command and preparing for a meet, I would have guys, when I was doing my max squat, walk around and yell in front of me and make all this racket. Because normally when I lift, it's in a very quiet and controlled environment. But you go to a powerlifting meet and it's mayhem, right?
That's right.
And so I would have guys do that in front of me. So mentally I would go laser focus in on a dot, focus on the dot, look at nothing else, think about my points of performance and what I'm doing. Break the hips, sit back, squat down, tight grips, tight shoulder. You know what I mean? And play the whole thing out. And I'd already mentally played this out 100 times in my mind ahead of time through visualization.
And the improvisational mindset or the contingency mindset also gives the conscious mind, it occupies the conscious mind, which keeps it from drifting. When the mind drifts in uncertain situations, that's when bad things happen. So we always give it something to do. We give the mind something to do. Plan for every potentiality.
That's right. And in the SEALs, we train for failure.
Right.
Everything we're like, what is the worst possible case scenario? Now let's make it even worse than that. Let's be wet and sandy. Let's have a gun down. Let's have a guy wounded. Let's have noise and mayhem and all these things. And if I can maintain my calm and relax and just do my fundamental techniques, clear left, clear right, slowly move forward, take control of space, put hands on people, control them, and never let my anxiety rise, I'm going to be extremely effective no matter what happens.
Yeah, and you're not allowing outside factors to influence your thinking. You're controlling your own thinking from the inside, focusing outward, and that's critical difference.
Plus, with
Yeah.
that preparation, now you have confidence. We've all been in situations where we've been unprepared, whether it's a speech or a class or something like that, and that feeling is like you're sitting there with your pants off or something. You know what I mean? But when you've covered all the bases, then that gives you confidence also. And with the guys saying, "Oh, well, we did this, we did that. Now we can just complete our mission."
Again, you can think more clearly when you have that confidence too.
And the breathing is the cornerstone,
I
because
love that.
you always have your breathing. And I don't care whether it was Cassidy talking to me about my breathing, or Robert Smith talking to me about Tai Chi, low diaphragm breathing. At the highest levels of every physical art, the breath is critical, and the breath is the first step in gaining control of the mind.
Yeah, well, I think a key thing that we keep skirting around is visualization is just getting repetitions in. You're contingency planning for the worst case, but you're mentally getting your repetitions in. And it's the same when I'm lifting. It's the same when I'm training to assault a target. I'm getting a lot of repetitions in so that I'm desensitized to the distractions.
Mm. Yeah, you've been there before,
Right.
even if it's in your head. Yes.
And that's when I talk about when I go to bed at night, I'm playing out my workout in my head, and then the next morning on the way to the gym, I'm playing out my workout, and then when I do my workout, I'm hyper focused because I've already gotten a few dozen reps in mentally before I've gotten there.
Yeah,
And it's the same with law enforcement. If they're sitting in their car, or if they're waiting to, if they're standing on a street corner, whatever they're doing, they should play out in their mind several times. When I approach a suspect, I'm going to be 45 degrees off. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Check their hands, check their waist, and play this whole thing out as all the way to the point where they're actually approaching somebody. They're like, I've been here 1,000 times in my mind, and they're not caught off guard.
Yeah.
Deja vu all over again.
That's right.
And this is all the stuff that you're covering with these guys when you go see a different police department or whatever. You're kind of, which a lot of them probably know this, or maybe they don't, I don't know, but you're just raising it and bringing it to their attention again, because it makes sense. It makes a big difference.
Well, I take it out of compartmentalization and I let it all flow together, right?
Yeah.
When we look at how we do our human performance, where it's physical strength, it's psychological, it's spiritual, it's diet, nutrition, recovery, all these, mobility. There's all these cogs in this wheel that have to come together to make you truly at a higher level and transcend a little bit. And it's the same with all these other aspects. You got to play all these different parts together, but they all have to tie in together simultaneously.
Right.
So that you have to get your reps in, and it has to be rehearsed. Where instead of just going, okay, well, if I go to a suspect, I'm going to go up and put hands, or I'm not. There's so much more things that are involved in that. What's going on around them, what's going off, concentric ring wise, farther and farther. Are there people approaching? Is there going to be a riot? Are phones already out? Is this a pre-stage thing? You know what I mean? There's so many things play out in your head. And again, you always just devolve back to your fundamentals and just be really, really good at the basics.
Right. All right.
It's just interesting, Marty, what you were saying at an elite level. And in our experience, nobody ever gets to be a SEAL or a world champion, or unless they use these tactics.
You don't get to those levels casually.
Right. You can get so good and everybody thinks you're great and all that. Now you want to go to these extra levels, these zenith levels, you got to use this kind of stuff.
That's right.
You got to go outside your art to improve your art.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no way around it, because this level is the best in the world.
Yeah, I was talking to a high school athlete I was training yesterday, and I said, well, now you got to make a decision. Do you want to just be a good high school athlete, or you want to be a great one? Well, if you want to be a great one, this skipping breakfast stuff, and this not visualizing stuff, and this not planning your workouts, and not having a notebook, all that stuff, when you take it to the next level, that's what takes you there, that preparation. And it's analogous to all this stuff.
Well, it's the planning. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You can't just go, okay, I need to have discipline. You gotta
Right.
break it down, man. You gotta be like, when I get up in the morning, I'm gonna make my bed, I'm gonna do some mobility exercises. I mean, you have to have all this stuff pre-planned and scheduled and written out and laid before you. And like, I'm following this. And like I said, for me, I go and immediately tell everybody what my intent is. And then in my mind, I'm playing it out where, oh man, if I don't get this squat, my wife is going to disown me and my children are going to be humiliated for the rest of their life. My wife could give a shit less how much I can squat.
That's what Jim's always saying, that kind of stuff.
But in my mind, I shame myself into
Yes.
getting up like, man, I got to do it or I'm going to humiliate my family.
Yeah, you
And
put yourself
I'm
on the
going to let
spot.
everybody
Yeah.
down. Because
Yeah.
the worst fear for all SEALs is letting down our brother, you know, letting down the guy next to us. So I have to play it that way in my mind. And so far, you know, I made it down to 220 and competed. I got my 500 for 50. You know, literally shame myself into it, and that's what works for me. Other strategies might work for other people, but without that preparation and laying it all out, it takes a lot more than just going, well, you need more discipline or something
Yeah,
silly
that's-
like that, right?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, man, this has been very insightful. This has been great stories. We love learning about, you know, a little bit about your past and what you got going on in the future. One of the things we also want to make sure to mention is Four Pillars Collective, and the website is fourpillarscollective.com. And you are a nonprofit. You guys are registered and everything. You guys are taking donations to anybody that, from anybody that cares to go ahead and donate. You know, it helps these guys go around to different police departments and teach them these techniques and tactics and ways to, you know, better bridge the gap with the public, which is something we all really need right now, especially, you know, some cities a lot more than others right now. So I think these guys are on to something. There's a very bright future here with you and your group of guys. And I'm sure you have a large Rolodex of guys that you can bring in, you know, as your company grows. So
Yeah, well, that was something that I had learned from my previous command was if you want to learn something, then you reach out to the best, right? If I want to learn powerlifting, I go to Marty and I go, who's the greatest squatter in the world? Okay, Kirk Kowalski. Sign him up. I want to learn from him. And it's the same with combatives. And fortunately, the guys that I have, Conan Silvera from head coach at America Top Team and Dave Camarillo and Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu fame and Gustavo Machado and others, these are the best guys in the world. They build world champions and they themselves are, you know, top level athletes. So I'm only going to bring in the best possible people or, you know, that have been vetted.
Sure.
I got to say this one time. So I'm standing next to him and we're in the old gym before they built the new one. And we're standing there and somebody comes in and he looked at me, he says, you know, we really don't want you in our gym if you haven't been a national or world champion.
Not to coach us. I don't want you to be, you know, here's something in human performance that's gross that we see all the time is all these different people that appear out of nowhere and are like, well, I trained all these world champions. You know, there's a difference between taking a guy who is nothing, a raw piece of clay, and building him into a world champion, or getting a guy that's already a world champion and he comes in and he does a seminar at your place. You're not training world champions. You're just shooting a shit a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a huge difference. And I want people that build world champions from scratch.
I want to mention something too before we sign off here. Hendo is going to be joining me a week from Saturday in Manhattan at Reload Gym, where we're going to be sharing for the first time with the public. I don't know, I guess we call it's a seminar booklet that we first started 10 years ago when we first started coming down and working with the guys in Virginia Beach. And Hendo and I have been kicking this thing back and forth for a decade. And each year it got a little more detailed, a little thicker, a little more insightful. Now the document is up to just short of 100 pages. So we're gonna, for the first time, preview this thing with the public, with the folks over at Reload in Manhattan. So if anybody's in town and wants to be a part of that, come on by. We're hoping to take it to a larger, wider audience, and we will be turning it into a book, or what's the new thing they're doing, the ebook, something. We're going to make it available to the general public some way, shape, or form. But we will be sharing this. Up until this point, it's been insider knowledge with the general public for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, we tried and tested it. That's what happened. Like with everybody's program that comes in and goes, "Hey, I'm a great coach." I'm like, "Okay, well, give me your program and I'll compete in it and see if it works." This is the one that is enduring. We've always had 100% success rate with.
And this was always reserved just specifically for you guys in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, because we just needed that minimalist time, like you said.
And Hendo and I talk to each other. We talk to each other a lot, and we talk to each other a lot about, what do we talk about? This stuff. We talk about training. We talk about how do we improve? What do we do to get better? And it's not just strength training. It's all of life. It's cardio, it's lifting, it's brain train. It's all these various elements. We're really trying to create an evolved human. It's a strategy of which strength is one critically important fundamental, but it's not the whole thing.
Yeah. And Hendo, don't you think this kind of training ought to be brought to a much broader population with various branches of the military? I mean, it's not just something that works with the Navy. Why not the Army? Why not the Marines and all those guys? So,
it's stay weak.
I wouldn't say that. Everybody needs to improve, right? We all need to get better, but we need to stop with all this gimmicks and shticks and just get back to the fundamentals and do what works best. And right now, I think we've got the market on that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the training nowadays seems to be formed and formulated behind and around some new product, some new gimmick. And you see them on TV all the time, and then you see on Instagram guys are doing squats on resistance balls and all this stuff upside down. They're upside down on a leg press and all this crap. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, from here to 50 years from now, it'll still be the gold standard of squats, deadlift, bench press with a barbell. That's never going away. It's the gold standard. It's what works.
Yeah, it's raw iron.
Also, it depends how you do them. That's the thing that we want to bring to the table. We want to bring some sophistication to these techniques that everybody has a different way of doing a squat, a different way of doing a bench press, a different way of doing an overhead press. And we rely on structural architecture, logic, and empirical experience that goes back forever, right? This is the methodology of champions.
Right. That's right.
One thing about those gimmicks that come out, they're easy. This stuff is difficult, but the rewards are great.
Well, it's a difference between exercising and training, right? You can exercise with any gimmick on this earth, and it's not going to do anything for you. You have to purposely train with what's most effective technique and most effective implements, being the barbell. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And get it done, because raw strength is the only way to be productive and to have good longevity.
And the difference between training and exercise is training implies planning.
Right.
Exercise, you just go in, do whatever you want that day, whatever you feel like. That's great. Bye. See you later. This session has no relation to that session. One session has no relation to the next session. And it's just a little exercise free-for-all. Training is different. Training is sequential. Training is incremental. We eat the elephant one bite at a time, right?
With a goal in mind, yes.
Yes. And we reverse engineer the strategy based on the desired outcome.
And if you're constantly trying to figure out ways to make your lifting easier, you got the wrong attitude. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to make you sweat. It's supposed to make you fatigued and want to just go sit on the couch for 6 hours after you're done. That's what causes the body to change.
No, we do active rest. We do active rest.
Either way, you got to earn it, right? There's no free rides. There's nothing for free in this country. You got to get out and earn it. And you're going to have, it's not just a physical positivity that you're going to get from it, but you're going to get an internal premium from it. You're going to feel good about yourself. You're going to be a better member of society. You're going to be, you're going to have greater longevity. You're going to be better for your family, everything. But just get out and earn it for 30 minutes a day. Like, take 30 minutes out of your miserable life, get in the gym and do something that's going to help and affect all of society around you.
Right.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, brother.
Well said.
All right. Put the period on that.
All right, so Hendo, we're gonna go ahead and put your website up on the podcast. We'll put it on social media as well, so people can go to fourpillarscollective.com and read all about these guys. And like I said, they're taking donations if you care to donate to them. It's a great cause. So we'll have all that information up. I also want to mention that you can check out Marty's weekly column, Raw with Marty Gallagher, at ironcompany.com. You can find his latest article, Robert Smith, Journey to the Center of the Physiological Universe. That's on our website now. And you can make sure to visit him on Instagram, which is at the Marty Gallagher. And of course, Stacy's website. See, I write this down now. I know it's coming. So we got to give Stacy some love. So it's functional-strength.org.
Correct.
And then of course, if you're in need of gym equipment, flooring, whatever, we supply to residential, commercial, and we're a GSA contractor. Hendo, you've got some of our stuff.
I do. In fact, I'm kicking myself in the butt for not using the Karwoski bar in the gym because my grip kept sliding. I had to use this tacky like glue. Yeah, that knurling on that bar is amazing. And also it's not bendy. It's a nice stiff bar, which I actually prefer. I don't want to cheat my way through it by having this big swinging thing flying around in my hands. I want to have a nice sturdy bar that's raw weight coming up off the ground.
It's fun. Yeah, exactly. And, Kirk and I planned all that out. We gave him the specs that he wanted. And it's funny because he wanted the knurling a lot more aggressive than what it is now. And I sent Marty and the guys a little piece of this bar as an example. And it was more intense than a cheese grater.
Yeah, it was like ripping a cheese grater. I swear to God.
And Kirk said, "That's perfect."
Yeah, I like that too, man.
And I said, "Dude, you're gonna alienate 99% of your."
It was ripping the skin off. In the squat, it was, if the bar shifted on the back of their neck, it was ripping their skin off.
Oh, it was gone.
Yeah, but it makes sense from Kirk's perspective because he has more hands. So he wants something that's going to cut into his hands and not come out.
And Kirk would say, Kirk would say something like, "That weeds out the sissies."
No, it's a great bar. I love that bar. I really do.
All right. Well, we thank you for.
If I could say one more thing, JP, is for my nonprofit, Four Pillars Collective, especially to the youth that are out there, the younger generation, you cannot depend on the government to keep you safe. You cannot depend on the media to give you information. If you want a revolution and to reform policing and do something for your own future, then send a donation, $1, doesn't matter. And we're going to take that money and put it into getting good equipment for law enforcement. We're going to get them, rounds and stuff so they can shoot and learn how to shoot more accurately. We're going to bring in the best professionals throughout the world to ensure that they're given the best possible training that they can possibly get. So if you want to invest in your own future and be safe, this is the way to do something. Stop trolling on the internet and step up and actively do something for your own future.
I think that's a great public announcement. Absolutely. I totally agree. So again, like I said, I'll put your website up there and everybody can go and check that out. And I do want to mention Jim Steele. I can't forget about Jim Steele. His articles can be found on our articles section at ironcompany.com. His current article is Keep Going. He's got another one in the works. What's that one about?
Summertime training, different workouts you can do in the heat.
There you go.
Get outside and do stuff.
Are you training naked on your deck again?
Not quite naked. I'm getting there. So as it gets warmer, I take off one piece of clothing each week. Do it. So pretty soon.
Depends on which
And
article.
he also increases the amount of beers he has during the whole workout.
No,
So-
no.
I had a beer since before Thanksgiving.
That's right. How
What?
about that? Yeah.
So yeah, I built up enough equity, built up plenty.
All right. Well, very good. So that's what's going on here. Hendo, we thank you so much for your service. You and all your guys and everybody in the military, working for the government. We appreciate everything you guys do, keeping us safe. We just really appreciate it. So, and love what you're doing. So we're going to help promote that any way we can. And we really thank you for coming on to the podcast and sharing. And this is not something you usually do. In fact, this is the first podcast or interview you've done. So we are very honored. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope I didn't mess it up. But
No, you did
thanks for
great,
having
man.
me.
No, you did. No, you did all right. You did great. All right, buddy.
Nice.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. It was great.
I'll see you a week from Sunday.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Bye.